Okay, so we have started the recording. So you can connect to me on LinkedIn. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel. And we also have a Telegram group where I have almost 1,500 professionals connected to me. And we discuss variety of topics related to telecom, IT, and cloud. Right. I will share all these links in the chat box a little later. I also manage a community of around 10,000 professionals. This is a little old picture. Now it is 10,000 plus members. I manage this community of 5G professionals worldwide. It has got around 10,000 members from 100 plus countries. I will share the link. If you're interested, you can join that group as well. And before we move forward, few points to note. This is an open session, so we are not going to get into deep tech concept, and we are going to talk about more about the overview to the career and the things what you can see in the telecom and IT related networks, and how you can excel in your career while studying in college. I recently, yesterday I got a call from one of our college senior who was graduated in 1994. And he was telling me that, hey, my kids, they are studying in some engineering college in Jaipur, and they have they have got around 48 subjects in their 4 years of education. And when I consulted some of the industry experts, they say out of those 48 subjects they have, almost 40 plus are obsolete. That means those topics are no more required in the industry. So many of the colleges, I'll say most of the colleges, you are studying the subjects which are already outdated, which are not required in the industry. So you are left with only 8 subjects. Now, out of those 8 subjects, in which area you want to make your career, you should decide that, not the companies who is coming to hire you. Now, how you can do this, we are going to talk about that in the session in the upcoming slides. Okay, so whenever you're not speaking, please keep your microphone on mute all the times. At any point of time, if you have any questions, please feel free to type those questions in the chat box, or maybe you can unmute and speak about those questions. You can type your question in the chat box during the session. We will also have question and answer at the end of the session. I will be uploading this video on the YouTube. So if you are not having a good internet connection or maybe some interruption in between, you can watch this video on our YouTube channel at a little later stage. If you have any other information required, you can write me an email at info@learnizoglobal.com or visit www.learnizoglobal.com. We have already created a WhatsApp group. If you have any questions, you can type your question in that WhatsApp group also. Now, these are the companies we train, right? So we train people of Ericsson, Samsung, Accenture, Amdocs. So these are our major customer. However, this is not a complete list. This is an old list. We have got almost 15 or 20 new customers. So we are leading with all the leading telecom, IT, and R&D related companies in the telecom and IT space, right? So these are our prime customers. Coming back to my introduction, I am Sanjay Kumar. As I mentioned, I am from MBM from 2001 batch. I'm pretty much connected to the alumni of MBM, right? So I'm actually connected to almost 5,000 people. Owner of many Facebook groups, many WhatsApp groups, and many LinkedIn groups as well. In addition to this, I also have a job referral group on Telegram. On Telegram, I have a job referral group. So if you are looking for some internship, if you're looking for some jobs, what you can do is you can post your requirements on the job referral group. There are around 700 plus members, and participants of that group, which are typically the MBM alumni, are going to help you with the internship and the jobs, right? So please join all these groups, and that will make you connected with the MBM alumni. The companies, currently I'm running 2 companies, Learnizo Global and NanoCell Networks, which are both into the knowledge management space. But before that, I worked with HFCL, Reliance, Hutchison SR, Ericsson, Nokia, Refcon Finland. I have personally traveled and trained people in 50 plus countries. So most of the Europe, UK, Middle East Asia, Southeast Asia, Africa, Australia, New Zealand, I've traveled. I originally hail from a small town in district Hanumangarh. My village name is Pilibanga. So it's a small town in the district of Hanumangarh near to Sri Ganganagar. I'm originally from that place. Most of my education has been into Hindi medium. So I typically Rajasthani medium guy, as many of you must be. The technologies I have worked with 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G kind of technologies, the transmission, IP, core, WAS, and cloud. When I talk about cloud, I was one of the AWS authorized instructor, as well as the AWS certified solution architect. I worked with almost 20 years in the industry. Out of that, 15 plus years I have spent into the training. Right. So this is a brief introduction about myself. If you have any further question, please feel free to ask those questions in the chat box. Now, you may ask, hey, we already have 1G, we already have 2G, we already have 2G networks, 3G networks, 4G networks. Why do we really need another G? Why do we really need another G? And why 5G? You may ask this question, okay, I'm not even getting the data rates what I'm supposed to get in the 4G network, which is typically quoted at 1 Gbps kind of data rate. I'm not even getting that. Then why we are already talking about 5G? I'm not even able to achieve the 1 Gbps kind of data rate in the 4G network. So this is a little misconception here. Let me tell you about one thing. This 1 Gbps data rate is not what a user will get. So this is more of a marketing term. This 1 Gbps data rate, 1 Gbps data rate is the data rate which is typically the peak data rate of the network. Peak data rate of the network. Okay, so there is a message from Tanu. Give me a minute. Let me check. I will share, Taru, I will share all the links in the session at a later stage, as well as in the WhatsApp group, right? So the peak data rate means, let's say I have 10 people reporting to me. I'm the network and I have 10 people reporting to me. And if I have 1 Gbps data rate, what I can do is I can distribute these 1 Gbps in hundreds of people who are using my resources. So basically, this 1 Gbps data rate is the combined data rate of all the users available in that coverage area, and that too in the ideal condition. And most of the time, these ideal conditions are not able to meet. So basically, we have already run out of the 4G capacity. And that is why we are looking for 5G network. That's not the only reason. There are more reasons to it, and we will talk about it. But before I talk about it, you may ask, hey, why cloud is getting so important? Cloud and telecom. Okay, let me put it this way. Few years back, if I talk about, let's say, 2010, this is telecom world. This is telecom. This is IT and cloud. Well, and they are almost 5% kind of intersection between telecom and IT industry. But today, when we sit at 2022, this intersection is almost 75 or maybe 80% of that. So what I'm trying to convey here is in today's world, telecom industry cannot thrive without the support of IT and cloud. And we are going to talk about this pretty much in detail. And today, let me tell you one thing. If companies are looking for 100 people who have experience in DevOps, they are going to get only 5 people. So for whom this creates an opportunity? Does this create opportunity for the people who are working in the telecom industry? No. Who have experience with the 10 years of experience? No. This creates a huge opportunity for the students and the freshers. So the people who are already working in the industry, for them, building capabilities around DevOps, around cloud is not that easy, but it is pretty easy for the students or fresher to get started with these technologies. So in coming 2 years or 3 years, it is going to generate lot of jobs for the freshers, and the numbers what you cannot imagine. So if you have not heard about these terms like DevOps, like cloud, I'll request all of you to at least start learning all these things, at least at a basic level. Of course, you can go for some certifications and stuff like that, but at least at a basic level, at least understand what DevOps is. But even though you belongs to electronics and computers, maybe electronics and communication, maybe you have not heard about these terms. Even you cannot survive in telecom world without knowing these terminology, without knowing IT and cloud kind of terminology. So everyone should learn these terminologies, even though you want to work in electronics and telecommunication industry. So cloud is becoming very important, not only for telecom, but for every industry, be it logistics, be it smart cities, be it the infrastructure, be it pharma. Every industry is impacted by cloud, and there are millions of jobs which are generated in the cloud industry. If you are not connected to these terminologies, you are missing the major chunk of your jobs, major chunk of the jobs which are available in the industry. So everyone should get the some hold on the cloud concepts and related stuff. Now, jobs in telecom are pretty different. Earlier telecom networks were in some kind of piece of hardware, so there were only 5 to 10 different companies who were hiring for telecom world. Today, there is a whole hierarchy. Today, there is a whole hierarchy who is hiring in the telecom space. There are OEMs, original equipment manufacturers. Let me change the color. So there are OEMs, companies who are manufacturing the equipments. There are companies who are operators like Airtel, like Jio, like Vodafone Idea. There are companies which are into the IT space who are building software applications. There are consulting companies which are like EY, like PwC, like KPMG. There are hyperscalers like AWS, Azure, Google. So today, almost thousands of the companies who are hiring in the telecom and cloud space. As I mentioned, now there is a lot of intervention between telecom and cloud. So you may need to develop multiple skills to get the right jobs in the industry today. Okay. Now, what is DevOps? How many of you have heard about DevOps? Can somebody help me to answer this thing? What do you understand by DevOps? Can somebody help me to understand what is the DevOps? Any of you have heard about DevOps? You can unmute yourself and speak about it if you have heard about it, or at least say no in the chat box if not heard about it. At least say no in the chat box if not heard about it. Okay, Shivam says he has not heard about it. Taru says she has not heard about it. Avinash says no. Okay, now how many of you have heard about software development? Almost everyone, right? So almost everyone has heard about software development. Earlier, there used to be two different domains. The software when it is developed and software when it is in production. That means some developers are there who are developing some kind of codes or some kind of applications. And after testing those equipments, they are releasing these applications for the production or for the real world deployment. However, these two departments used to work in silos, used to work in isolation. Now, whenever there is a problem here, they used to give some feedback to the development team. Development team used to, build the code or, correct some kind of bugs, again create a build, again test it, and then they used to release it to the production. So there used to be two different teams. Some teams are development teams, and some teams are production teams or the operations team, as they used to call it. However, with the changing world of technologies, the way the technology is changing and the way the applications are evolving, it is not possible for these two departments to work in silo. So that brings a new term called as DevOps. DevOps means you are building the code, you are testing the code and releasing it for operation, but the cycle remains more or less. So they used to use something called as waterfall model. Waterfall model. I'll not get into the details of this. If you are from software development, maybe you have heard about these terms, right? But now in the DevOps one, this happens more on the real-time basis. So that means the development team and operation teams, they work in sync with each other. And there are, some kind of frameworks around DevOps. They are called as continuous integration, continuous deployment and stuff like that. They typically call this as CI/CD. That means these terms, the development team and the operation team has to work in sync with each other and get a better life cycle for the softwares to be built. So now you cannot build your softwares as monolithic big softwares. You have to break down your software into smaller services, and those services are called as microservices. So even the software development world is very different compared to what it used to be, say around few years back. Now you have to, even telecom is impacted by this, and all the applications, all the networks are actually running on DevOps kind of environments, and we will talk a bit more about it in the upcoming slides. Now, if you really want to get started for the next wave of the growth, let's say you are in a student and you are already reading 48 subjects. So maybe you are already reading 48 subjects in your 8 semesters. You may think, hey, I am studying about, embedded, I am studying about C, C++, Golang, Python, Java. I'm studying about data science. I'm studying about wireless network. What are the areas where I should excel? What are the areas which may give me better career opportunities? Right. Almost everyone have that question, right? Saying that, okay, hey, I don't really like all the subjects equally, right? So for personally, if I talk about me, right, I used to like the wireless network and digital logic. The DSP is something which was, over my head. I was one of the, last student in my class. In the class of 44 students in engineering, my rank was 42. So I was one of the last, backbenchers. Right. However, one area which was pretty interesting to me was wireless network and digital logic, and I have made my career out of it. Now, you also need to do one thing, one exercise. Go to Google and look for 10 technology trends that is going to change the world in next 10 years. So just for example, I've taken a result from Forbes, which says, hey, 10 tech trends that is going to transform our world, which includes ubiquitous computing, connected and smart everything, the datafication of the world, artificial intelligence, extended reality, digital trust, 3D printing, gene editing, nanotechnologies, new energy solution. This brings a big question. What is this question? You may ask this question here. Hey, I have talked about almost 10 trends here, right? But in none of these trends, I see telecom. In none of these trends, I see 5G or cloud. Then why should I learn telecom? Why should I learn 5G? Why should I learn cloud? Okay, because looking at these trends, you don't see any term related to telecom, related to 5G, related to cloud. Then why I'm spending so much time in learning all these things? Let me answer this question. These trends are not the technologies. These trends are not the technologies. They are rather some kind of solutions or applications. These trends are some kind of solutions or applications. These solutions or application will be running on some basic infrastructure and some kind of enablers, and those enablers are these technologies. So what I'm trying to convey here, the backbone of all these trends, if not all, for most of them, for most of these trends, to enable those trends, to enable those solutions, to enable those applications, we need a very, very good infrastructure on the internet, which is going to be telecom, 5G, and cloud. Right. So basically, the intersection of all these trends is this. If you really want to get, good traction on any of these trends, you should have the basic fundamentals of telecom, 5G, and cloud related technologies. So basically, all these things are enabled by these carriers. So these are basically carriers of these trends. So you should, these are some kind of solutions. So if you see, if you want to run, let's say, artificial intelligence, can it run with a very, very good data networks? It cannot. Can it run with a very, very good wireless network? It cannot. So many of these trends are completely dependent on telecom, 5G, and cloud kind of verticals. Right. So till now, just to get a quick feedback, I hope I'm able to communicate with you guys. If you have any feedback, any suggestion, let me know. I can speed up, I can go slow, whatever you feel like. Am I doing some justice to your time? Are you able to get what I'm trying to convey here? At least give some feedback in the chat box. Are you getting some information? Okay, great. At any point of time, if you have any question, please type those questions in the chat box. Now, why to learn 5G? If you see this today, there are almost, one second. There are almost 1 million jobs available on 5G and related technology today, and companies are not able to find the people. Companies are not able to find the skilled people on 5G and cloud related technologies. By 2025, as per some report from Economic Times, ET, it says India will need 22 million skilled people for 5G rollouts. That means almost, you know, 220, one second, 22 million is like, 1 million is 10 lakh people. So it is almost 22 crore people. These many people has to be trained for 5G and related technologies. Today, almost every company is struggling to hire people with the new age skills. There is a huge skill industry gap. Okay. If you see many of you, okay, can you tell me in which semester you are? In which semester you are? Just your name and your semester. Okay, so Shivam is from sixth semester. What about others? Please write in the, okay, Deepak is in fourth semester, sixth, third, right? Okay, so if you see, you have almost completed, many of you have almost completed, 3 years of your education, and you have not even heard about these skills, what I'm talking about. That means there is a huge skill gap in the academia and industry. The things which are taught in the colleges and things which are required in the industry, there is a huge gap. And who can fill that gap? College curriculum will never fill that gap. Who can do it? Only you can do it. So who can make a difference in your life? It is not the college, it is not the books or the academics, it is going to only you. So you have to be open, you have to be enthusiastic about learning these terms and then growing in your career. Telecom industry as well as cloud industry growing at a fast pace, and as per some report of ET, this brings a 30 billion US dollar opportunities. 30 billion US dollar opportunities like 2 lakh crore kind of business, 2 lakh crore kind of business for the IT world in the India. Right. Now, many of these terms may be a little overwhelming here. As I mentioned earlier, 5G networks are going to be based on cloud native. What do we mean by cloud native? How cloud and cloud native are different? We are going to talk about it. Ultra dense network. Maybe you are already studying some things like antenna if you are coming from EC background, right? There is another concept which is coming up called as MIMO antenna, multiple input, multiple output antennas, right? So there is a massive, intervention of MIMOs in the 5G world. There is something called as millimeter wave. which is the use of frequency of 20 to 100 gigahertz. Now, we are becoming very impatient. That means we need the information right now. That means the network should respond as soon as possible. So if you want network to respond as soon as possible, what you need to do is you need to bring the resources closer to the end user, and that is called as multi-access edge computing. Edge computing is another area which is growing in a big way in the internet space. Lot of device to device communication, network function virtualization, and software defined networking. Network function virtualization and software defined networking, these are related to some of the cloud space. Network slicing. Network slicing means what you're doing is you are dividing one physical infrastructure into multiple logical networks, which are typically isolated. So I can have three networks in a given network, three logical networks in a given physical network, and all those capabilities of all those networks are going to be very different. So basically, I have created a slice of my network and I can allocate those slices for different kind of application. Orchestra. Network orchestration. Now, if you look at the changing technologies and lot of enablers, what we have discussed here, how do you really manage all these features? Can you really manage all these features manually? The answer is no. You need to have lot of automation in the network, and this automation should be fueled by artificial intelligence and machine learning, and automation of automation. A collection of automation is called as orchestration. Orchestration means managing your networks efficiently end to end. So orchestration is one of the integral aspect of the cloud-based or future telecom networks. Now, let's get started with a quick overview of 5G and why 5G is important. Okay, let me ask you a question, and I'm sure everyone will be able to answer this. When you move from 1G to 2G network, from 2G to 3G network, from 3G to 4G network, what are your expectations? What do you expect from these networks for the next generation? What do you expect from the generation? Okay, Taru says high speed. Anything else? Better speed and good quality. Okay, so till now, if you see, whenever I talk about next generation, mostly it was high data rates or high speeds, as we call it. High data rate or high speed, what we call it. But that's not what we are going to achieve in 5G. First of all, if we see this, today almost in, okay, let me put it this way. In last 10 years, 2010 to 2020, we have got exponential growth in users. Do you agree? In last 10 years, we have got exponential growth in the number of wireless users, or I'll say, just to keep it simple, mobile users. Do you agree with that? I'm sure everyone will agree to that. Can you see similar growth for next 10 years, 2030? Can you see the similar growth for the number of users in the next 10 years? You cannot, because almost every human being today have one or two mobile phones or one or two SIM cards. Tomorrow, even 5G comes, 6G comes, we are not going to change from two SIM cards to four SIM cards or four SIM cards to six SIM cards, right? So end of the day, number of users are more or less saturated. Now, operators, companies like Airtel, companies like Jio, they make more money when the users are keep on increasing. So 5G cannot grow with the number of users, number of human beings. Now, from where the next level of growth will come? What do you think? The next level of growth will come from connected devices. That means next level of growth is not going to come from the humans, but from IoT kind of use cases, Internet of Things kind of use cases. So basically, 5G is not only about data rates, higher data rates given to the humans. 5G is also about connecting lot of things to the network. And because of that, 5G cannot function the way the 4G used to function or the 3G used to function. We need to enable a lot of new stuff in 5G. And what are those new stuff? We will talk about it in the upcoming slides. So first thing here, 5G is not only about data rate, 5G is also about lot of new use cases. What are these use cases? We will talk about it. This is a quick picture talking about evolution from 1G to 2G to 3G to 4G to 5G. Our data rate started with as low as 9.6 kbps, and in 5G we are expecting data rate of 20 gbps. It started in 1980s, 1990s, 2000, 2010, and 2017. Now, I can typically spend 30 minutes or 40 minutes talking about only this slide. I'll not do it because this is a pretty detailed topic. There are a lot of terms like UMTS, HSP, HSP plus, LT, LT Advanced Pro, and LT Advanced and LT Advanced Pro. I'll not get into those details. What I wanted to highlight here, our data rate has gone up from 10 kbps to 20 gbps, almost 200, 2 into 10 raised to the power 6 times, 2 into 10 raised to the power 6 times. Our data rate has gone high like anything, but that's not the only thing. In case, so this is related to 2G network. This is related to 3G network. As of now, because we are in introductory session, I'll not get into these details. So I have created a lot of videos on my YouTube channel. If you are interested to learn about 2G network, 3G network, 4G network, you can actually refer to those videos and look into more details. This is the 4G network. I'm not going to talk about each and every component in these networks. If you have a elective of wireless network in your college books, you are going to see maximum 2G and 3G network. But I have already talked about 4G network in some of my videos. I'm not going to talk about, I'm going to have some specific sessions in future for MBM students specifically talking about these networks in detail, but this is just a high level session, or else a very first session where I'm just going to talk the overview what I'm going to cover in the future session. This is how 5G network looks like. Let me highlight one point here. When you see a box here, one second. When you see a box here, the MME or HEW or HSS, in this scenario, it is typically a piece of hardware and a tightly integrated piece of software. A piece of hardware and a tightly integrated piece of software, and you need to buy it from the same company. That means if you want to buy this MME, you can buy MME from only Ericsson, from Nokia, from Huawei kind of companies. So you need to buy only from one company. However, tomorrow, if you want to change your software, you also need to change your hardware. Why? Because they are having dependency on each other. They are typically dependent on each other. So basically, the software and the hardware are tightly integrated with each other. Is it a good practice? Yes or no? What do you think? Is it a good practice or a bad practice? What do you think about it? So tightly integrating hardware and software is a good practice or a bad practice? What do you think about it? Any answers here? It's a good practice. Avinash says good practice. Now, think from a perspective of a company like Airtel. As of now, they are using products from Ericsson. Tomorrow, they want to move to Nokia. They have built huge, hardware from Ericsson, and now they have to scrap all this hardware and buy a new hardware of Nokia. That's a pretty, bad thing for Airtel to scrap the whole hardware and buy a new piece of hardware. And this hardware is into the number of 10,000s and maybe more than that. So basically, tying up the software with the hardware is not a great practice. So in 5G, what we are doing is, if you see the same box here, this box or this box or this box or this box, they are just software applications. They are some software applications and they are running on a single physical infrastructure, which is called as COTS infrastructure. COTS infrastructure is like a generic hardware which can serve the application of multiple companies, multiple OEMs. Let me take an example. Now, this hardware is like Apple Mac, right? Which can be used to run only iOS. Basically, if you buy this hardware you cannot run any other operating system. Just taking an example here. And this operating system you cannot run on a Windows-based hardware. So basically, this laptop can run only iOS, or this iOS can run only on Apple Mac laptop. This hardware is like a generic PC or laptop which can run Windows, which can run Linux or multiple versions of Linux. So basically, this COTS hardware is like a generic PC or laptop which can run multiple operating system and multiple applications. So which one is more beneficial? The closed infrastructure or the open infrastructure? Which one is more beneficial for the end user? Of course, the COTS architecture. So today, all the telecom networks are moving towards cloud infrastructure. So this COTS hardware will build a big infrastructure, and that infrastructure is called cloud infrastructure, and the software applications will be running on those cloud infrastructure. Tomorrow, you want to run some applications from different vendors, you can do it on the same infrastructure. No need to scrap your infrastructure whenever you want to change applications. So it is just like, hey, you want to use the new application, you want to buy a new laptop. That's not suggested. That's not a good idea, right? So what you can do is, in the future core-based network, 5G core network, the complete infrastructure can be cloud-based, and that can be public cloud, that can be private cloud. If you're not sure what is public cloud and private cloud, let me talk about it. Private cloud means when a company builds the cloud infrastructure for its own purpose. Public cloud is the cloud when you want to sell or resell these services, cloud services, to the retail customers as well. One of the leading company who does provide the public cloud services. Can you name that company? Which company is the front runner in the public cloud space? I'm sure some of you have heard about that name. Anybody can answer that question? What is the company who is number one in the public cloud space? And the right answer is AWS, Amazon Web Services. The second one is Microsoft Azure, and the third one is Google Cloud. And interestingly, if you want to experiment with AWS, if you want to experiment with Azure, if you want to experiment with Google, they give you a free tier. Free tier means you can simply log into those cloud platforms and start using it. You don't know how to use it? There are a lot of free training. So go to aws.training. They have a free resource. They have a free resource available for telling you how to use those resources. So what you need to do is, you just need to have the enthusiasm or the zeal to learn all these things. The resources are available free of cost. So all these things are freely available on internet. Now, how this network can be deployed? So nowadays we are talking about something called as containerization. We will talk about these containerization in some later sections, later modules. But as of now, containers are the smaller machines which are running in, which are hosting some of your microservices. Now, what is microservice? Let us try to understand that. So let us say you want to build an application. You want to build an application, and that application you typically build as a single software. Right? You want to build that application as a single software, as a monolithic software. And tomorrow, whenever there is a problem in this particular software, you have to change the complete code. Instead of that, we build the same software with smaller piece of codes, with a smaller piece of code. So this is first piece, this is second piece, this is third piece, this is fourth piece. And we see that there is a problem with the third piece. What we can do is we can just take it out, rewrite it, and just plug it back. So basically, monolithic softwares are broken down into smaller services or smaller application, and those services are referred as microservices. So future softwares are not going to be monolithic softwares. They are going to be microservices, or typically we write like this, microseconds, but we call that as microservices. Also, if you really want to increase the capacity of service number 2, you can add another instance of it. So that means even these microservices can independently scale as well. They can be scaled independently. They can be scaled independently. So basically, building a software into different pieces. Whenever you want to change something, just you need to change the same piece, and you can also independently scale. The two has to be scaled out, so you've scaled up. So basically, there are a lot of terms what I'm using here, and it may be a little confusing at this stage, but once you start getting into these details, it will be a cakewalk for you. It will be easier for you to learn compared to me, because I come with the 20 years of baggage, 20 years of experience. But for a fresh mind like yours, it will be pretty easy to understand. The only thing is you should have the zeal to learn, zeal to understand all these things. Now, all these applications are built as some microservices, and a collection of microservices are some kind of network function. So basically, your whole telecom network will be built on some cloud native environments, which will have Docker containers, which will have Kubernetes kind of container orchestration tools. What is Docker? What is container? We are not going to talk about all these things, but these are pretty important tools for the discussion of cloud native. So cloud native have microservices, cloud native have something called as DevOps, something called as CI/CD, something called as containerization. We should at least learn all these terminologies at a higher level. Now, as I mentioned earlier, is 5G just another G or some kind of disruption? As I mentioned, 5G is not only about data rate. The data rate is one of the aspects of the 5G network, but it also supports a lot of IoT related use cases under a vertical called as MMTC, massive machine type communication. It also enables a lot of mission critical application by another vertical called as URLLC, ultra reliable low latency communication. Ultra reliable low latency communication. So the use cases like 3D video, use cases like work and play in the cloud, augmented reality, industrial automation, self-driving car, mission critical applications, smart cities, voice, smart homes, gigabytes in a second. So we have variety of different applications. We have variety of different applications to be supported on 5G network. I'll say not even 10% of these applications were supported in the 4G network. So 5G is not going to be just another G. it is going to create a lot of disruption to the industry and how the multiple industry verticals are going to connect with the 5G networks. Now, a quick comparison between 2G and 3G, 4G core network compared to 5G core network. We'll not get into the details here, but just to understand, earlier we had network elements. Now we have network function, which are running on cloudification, softwareization, virtualization, and slicing. We used to have proprietary protocols here, and now we are going to have API-based communication. I'm sure some of you have heard about something called as REST API. REST API, which is representational state transfer. What is that REST API? We will not get into those details, but you should be able to get some good resources for RESTful API on the internet. HTTPS and JSON. JSON is called a JavaScript object notation, which is one of the major, schema used for many of these communication. Right. So I'll not get into many details here, but just a quick comparison between 2G, 3G, 4G network and the 5G network. Right. Next gen deployments are little detailed discussion. I'm not just skipping this discussion here. Maybe in some future sessions, I will talk about it. Right. Today, if you see, companies like AWS are not talking about only centralized cloud. They're also giving. So this is how a server rack looks like. And they're also giving these server racks to the companies so that companies can use AWS infrastructure in their own premises. Tomorrow, AWS may come to MBM college and say, hey, we want to put one of the MBM outpost to MBM so that MBM students can, experiment with the outpost rack of the AWS. So they are actually giving these racks to the end customer for experimentation, for, creating this physical infrastructure. Now, what are the things we are expecting in 6G and beyond, in the 6G network and beyond that? 6G network are going to combine lot of coverage going into satellite networks, unmanned aerial vehicle, drone-based networks. So typically this is some kind of drone-based network, terrestrial network, maritime network. So it is going to combine the coverage of multiple networks. They are going to use a lot of spectrums. I'm sure many of you have already heard about or read about EM spectrum, electromagnetic spectrum. So they have kilohertz, megahertz, gigahertz. So in 6G and onwards, we are going to use sub 6 gigahertz, millimeter wave, terahertz, as well as optical waves for communication. The networks has to have very secure, so they are going to provide security at multiple levels. I'm sure you have read about something called as OSI 7-level model, where we talk about physical layer security, network layer security, as well as the application level security. The application and the data is going to drive the next wave of growth, which has to be powered by AI ML, big data, data analytics, deep learning, and a number of other things similar to this. Right. So that's all what I had in this session. If we have any questions, we can take up the question, or maybe in the future, you can tell me what are the topics which will, interest you, and we can have a detailed session on those topics as well. Right. So I'm open for question. If you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask those questions. Do we have any questions from anyone? Please feel free to ask those questions. Any questions from anyone? Do we have any questions?
Hello.
Yeah,
Sir.
please go ahead.
Sir, I have prepared a feedback form. Can I circulate it in the chat? Then I will share the responses with you later.
Yeah, please, no problem. You can do it. Right.
Okay, everyone, please fill this form. This will help us plan future sessions. Also, please try to encourage more and more your fellow mates and other people to join the sessions. As you must have seen, the session was very amazing. It was very refreshing to see something related to our core electronics come. And of course, this is an MOU between Learnizo Global and MBM. So